Everybody was a little chatty. Yeah, that's right. Good morning and welcome to the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Today's date is August 7th, 2024. We'll bring this meeting to order and we'll begin with a moment of silence. Will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair. Members King and Summers have asked to be excused, and I've marked them so. Apking?
Here.
Botana? Here. Marker?
Here.
Schwartz?
Here.
Severson? Here. York? Here. Martin?
Here.
7 present, 2 excused.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next item here. That's item 5. It's approval of the minutes. A copy of the May 1st, 2024 meeting minutes were included in your backup material. Is there any discussion regarding these minutes? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve the May 1st, 2024 meeting minutes as presented. Motion made by Commissioner Apkin and a second by Commissioner Botana. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Apking?
Aye.
Botana?
Aye.
Marker?
Aye.
Schwartz?
Aye.
Severson?
Aye.
York? Aye. Martin?
Aye.
7
ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. All right, our first item of business is item 7A, ordinance 56-24. Does the city have a presentation?
Morning, Commissioners. For the record, Anthony Santor, Senior Planner. The city does not have a presentation for this piece of legislation. It is a very small code change, so I'm just here to speak to it and see if you guys had any questions. So, Ordinance 5624 is a council-derived ordinance that is seeking to modify sections 5.4.7.b.6 and 5.4.7.b7 in relations to boat canopies and marine improvements. So specifically, B6 is looking to increase the total number of canopies allowed on properties that exceed the typical 80-foot waterfront allotment that we have. So it will bump the number of canopies from 1 to 2. And then it will increase the allotted square footage based on a 9 times the amount of water frontage length, capped at 1,500 square feet. And then B7 is modifying the overall height allowed by the canopies to 20 foot above mean high water line or 16 feet above the marine improvement, whichever is less. I will stand by for any questions.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public that wish to speak, please direct yourself to the podium. State your full name for the record. Seeing none, we'll close citizen input. I'll turn it over to the commission. Do we have any comments from the commissioners? Oh, Commissioner Schwartz.
Yeah, this is actually kind of a personal thing for me. My company does electrical, and we do electric on hundreds of boat lifts a year for the last 3 decades. And it's been a problem since the city has allowed the canopies to be built, that you can build 2 boat lifts. You can't build 2 canopies, and it doesn't make sense. How do you decide which boat you're going to protect from the elements? So I think this is a real good change.
And I'll just do some clarification there. This ordinance only applies to oversized lots with more than 80 foot of the standard frontage on a canal, correct?
So that is correct in terms of the total number of canopies allowed and the square footage increase. So if you had the typical 80-foot water frontage lot, you would still be required to only provide, or maximum would be 1 canopy with the current maximum square footage is what is listed in the code. So that would not affect this. The overall height would be for any residential single-family property or any property constructing a boat canopy. So that would apply to all properties.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other comments from the commission? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve ordinance 56-24 made by Commissioner Apkin, second by Commissioner Schwartz. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Apking,
Aye.
Quintana,
Aye.
Marker,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Severson,
Aye.
York. Martin.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is item 7B, ordinance 55-24. I believe the city has a presentation on this.
Yes, sir. I'm Patrick Carlton White, a senior planner downstairs in DSD. I'll be presenting this case on behalf of Mr. Struve. He was on vacation this week. This case, ordinance 5524, also known as Flume 24-8, is brought forward by the city of Cape Coral. The property owner is Kenneth Backstrand. The subject property is 723 Nelson Road. It's a little over 1.5 acres. And the city is requesting to amend the future land use classification of this property from commercial activity center to commercial professional. The property is it's in the center of the city, and it's pictured here. This aerial displays the subject property and the 500-foot mailing notification area around it. You'll note that it is vacant. That is Stonehaven there to the west. The property, as I mentioned, currently has a CAC future land use. We're proposing to change it to commercial professional. When reviewing these types of requests, we often look at a criteria we call commercial nodes or policy 1.13. And in reviewing that policy, staff found that the subject site is at the location of 2 major streets. The site has a 1-to-1 ratio of width to depth. It's a square. This increased depth generally enables a site to accommodate parking, buffering, landscaping, stormwater management more adequately than many other properties that we might look at. The conclusion of staff was that the site can be considered a commercial node. An additional policy we look at is 1.14, which is about which we call the commercial siting guidelines. There are a number of those different guidelines. In this instance, during the course of analysis, staff found that the proposed amendment meets 4 of those guidelines: the major intersection, the compactness, the adequate depth, and the ownership pattern criteria, and it partially met 1 other: intrusion. Staff also found that the proposed amendment failed to meet 3 guidelines: integration, assembly, and access. Based on policy 1.14, an amendment to this commercial professional future land use classification is supported. There's not a specific number of those criteria that staff has to find. We look at it on balance. Another thing that staff looks at with these future land use amendments is an assessment of the impacts that we can estimate. We assume that a site would be developed under the maximum allowable entitlements in doing such an analysis. In this analysis, we found that for a CAC property, like the one we're looking at now, that's that's a little over an acre, that would allow for a maximum of 16 multifamily or 16 dwelling units an acre, and allow a maximum floor to area ratio of 2. If this is approved, that residential entitlement goes away, and the maximum FAR is reduced from 2 to 1. A detailed analysis of these different impacts is within your staff report and depicted before you. Rather than reading the entirety of it, I'll note that on whole, all of the impacts get reduced should this future land use amendment be approved. And just to sum it up, under the current CAC, the site could be developed with 85% of the property devoted to multifamily, 15% to commercial. Under the proposed commercial professional future land use designation, only commercial development would be allowed. The location at the site, its depth, its frontage, and its visibility render it a site well-suited for commercial development. Sharing part of that site with multifamily uses could represent a missed opportunity with respect to the city's deficiency of commercial lands. Therefore, city staff is recommending approval. We received one phone call in support. They noted that they didn't think multifamily uses on the property were appropriate. Depending on your input here, we plan to bring this to council for introduction on August 21st with a transmittal on September 4th. And I'll stand by for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. This is a open hearing. If there's any members of the public that wish to speak at this time, please direct yourself to the podium. State your name for the record. Seeing none, we'll close citizens' input. Move it back to the commission. Commissioner Epking?
Yes, I think it's probably the best move to create more commercial property for the city. We're always looking for areas and to get it away from the multifamily and put to this, I think it's very important and totally agree with the move. Thank you.
Commissioner Schwartz?
I'm the one up here that usually has an issue with putting commercial and residential areas. I think the mix is terrible for the property owners of the residential. But in this particular one, I agree with the city that this is the right spot for a commercial piece of property. But I still think city needs to look at how we mix residential and commercial properties. And look at the residential people when we're doing this and how it affects their basic property value. But like I said, in regards to this one, I definitely agree.
Thank you. Commissioner York?
You said that in response to notice, meaning, did you sent letters, and also there was I saw the sign actually on the property.
3 of them.
You only got one phone call, and that phone call was in support of the development of, or transferring it to future land use of commercial professional.
To be fair, I personally received 0 phone calls. I am pinch hitting this from Mike. But Mike, before he left on vacation, informed me that he had received that one phone call stating support. We did adequately notify this property in accordance with city policy. We have basically 3 objectives that we have to do in order to properly advertise a case. We put signage on the property, in this case 3, on its main frontages. We notify anyone, the mailing address of anyone within that 500-foot mailing notification area on the map. And we place a legal advertisement in the news press. And then we did properly advertise our case.
Thank you.
Commissioner Martin?
Is it the city or the property owner that's behind this initiative?
It's the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would echo a lot of the sentiment from the commission as far as great move by the city to change this. From my understanding, there's only been one property that has ever been developed that's commercial, neighborhood commercial. And it's a tough zoning to fall into for a lot of developers. So certainly would think it's a good move for the city as well and to enhance some of the commercial use in that area. Do we have any other comments from the commission? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I would move to accept the proposal.
Motion to approve ordinance 5524 made by Commissioner Botana
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Martin. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Apking?
Aye.
Botana?
Aye.
Marker?
Aye.
Schwartz?
Aye.
Severson?
Aye.
York? Martin?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Okay, next item on the agenda is item 7C, ordinance 5724, and I believe the city has a presentation here as well.
We do, yes. 1 second, let me just pull it up here. All right. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Chad Woyko, Principal Planner with the city's Planning Division. This is a city-initiated future land use map amendment, pretty similar to what you guys just saw with the previous case. This is Ordinance 57-24. The applicant for this is the City of Cape Coral. The location of this property is the northeast intersection of Casement Parkway and Santa Barbara Boulevard. The site is a little over 1.5 acres in size. This is currently within the reserve area of our urban services boundary, so there are no utilities on this site, nor are there any utilities that are currently planned for this site in the next 3 to 5 years. It's part of the UEP. I believe it's in UEP 5 or 6, so you're probably looking at a little bit down the road of when this site would actually have access to city water, sewer, and irrigation. And then the city's request is to amend the future land use of this property from single-family, multifamily, or SM, to the commercial professional future land use district. With this aerial that you have in front of you, you can see that this is a undeveloped 1.5 acre tract. It's at the intersection of those 2 streets that we mentioned previously. Surrounding development is either undeveloped lots or you do have single-family homes that are in the nearby vicinity. There is also an alleyway, 15-foot wide alleyway that is to the north of this property that acts as a little bit of a separation between this site and some of the single-family lots and homes that are to the north. Existing future land use of the site, it's the SM land use all around in all 4 directions is similar, and then staff's proposal is to take this site to the commercial professional future land use designation. So just quick background on what CP allows. It has a maximum FAR of 1.0, so this would allow for a maximum commercial square footage development of just under 70,000 square feet if that were developed to the full maximum potential. Generally within Cape Coral, you're looking at FAR developments within commercial sites of around 0.25 to 0.4. That's kind of stretching it. So you don't normally get something that develops to its maximum FAR of 1.0. And we also do not allow any residential units within the commercial professional designation. We looked at this per a couple standards within our code. First, we looked at the commercial node policy, which identifies and seeks to have commercial lands at direct intersections of 4-lane roadways. This is at a direct intersection of Kismet Parkway and Santa Barbara Boulevard. The former is a minor arterial, and then the latter is a collector roadway, respectively. So you're looking at roadways that would experience higher trip counts than like local roads. We find that these are both major roadways, and the site is directly at a commercial node, so it does meet this criteria within policy 1.13. We also looked at policy 1.14, which is our 8 commercial siting guidelines. Staff finds that the site is consistent with 5 guidelines, which is major intersection, adequate depth, compactness, assembly, and ownership pattern. Staff finds that it is not consistent with 1 guideline, which is integration, and that speaks to the lack of existing commercial development within that area. And then the site is partially consistent with 2 guidelines, which is an intrusion and access. Staff notes that policy 1.14 does not require a certain number of these guidelines to be met for staff to consider approval or denial of a case being having the future land use amended. So just a quick background analysis of this. Staff finds that the site is 1 parcel with 1 owner at a direct intersection of 2 major roadways. It is, while it's not a very large site, it is large enough to support a commercial development. Staff finds that the surrounding area is only approximately 30% developed with single-family homes. And then also staff finds that Northeast Cape has limited commercial areas, which limits goods and services for the residents and also limits the access to employment opportunities for the residents within that area. And then staff also finds that there is an ample supply of residential land use nearby, which will allow for residential units. And this would act as sort of a commercial spot for some of those homes to be able to utilize for various goods and services. So our recommendation of this change is that we recommend approval of the amendment to commercial professional based upon analysis within the comprehensive plan. We did receive 1 phone call of general inquiry. That was from someone representing the property owner. They asked sort of what the analysis and the reasoning behind the change was, and staff indicated that we had done a study within the past year and a half where we were seeking to bring more properties north of Pineland Road into a commercial designation to allow for more commercial development and expansion for the residents in the future. So I'm here for any further questions.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. We'll open up to the public. If there's any members of the audience that wish to speak, please direct yourself to the podium and state your full name for the record. Seeing none, I'll close citizens' input. I'll open up to the commission. Comments from the commissioners? Commissioner York?
I think I probably answered my question when I was looking at this, but there's one house that appears to be in this block, but it must not be. It must be directly north of the block. In other words, towards Pine Island Road. Do you know what house I mean? There's a house on it.
Within there are houses where that are this property is, I think the legal description, it's its own block.
Right.
Within the block that is north of there, there are some homes that are developed within that, and directly north of this property is, we mentioned, a 15-foot wide undeveloped alleyway, and then across that alleyway there is one home that is to the north of this site.
Okay. Yeah, it always confuses me because you really can't see any alleyway. It's there in essence, but okay.
Correct.
That's what I thought. And you didn't hear from them, the property owner, that property
We
owner?
didn't hear any. We have no inquiry from any surrounding property owners. We just mentioned that someone representing one of the owners of this property reached out and just kind of wanted some general information of this. They didn't have any objection. They indicated that they understood the change, why it was being made. Being an acre and a half at a direct intersection. The land use as it is now currently a single-family multifamily, which does allow potentially for single-family or multifamily, but the site being an acre and a half platted tract, you could only really do one single-family home there, or with the lack of utilities for multifamily, you would still be waiting in the same vein that you'd be waiting for commercial development up there with the lack of city water and irrigation. So it's sort of in a holding pattern for now until we get utilities up to this site.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments from the commission? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve ordinance 5724 made by Commissioner Schwartz
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Apking. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Apking?
Aye.
Botana?
Aye.
Marker?
Aye.
Schwartz?
Aye.
Severson? Aye. York? Aye. Martin?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next item, item 8, citizens' input. This is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak from the audience, please direct themselves to the podium. State your full name for the record. Seeing none, we'll close citizens' input. Moving on to item 9, staff updates. Do we have any updates from staff? No updates? All right. Item 10, other business. Today's agenda has no other business on it. And we'll move to item 11, member comments. Do we have any comments from the members? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 12, and that's the time and date of the next regular meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is scheduled for Wednesday, September 4th, 2024, 9 a.m. in council chambers. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Quick.